Da 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 da! What's my good cheer? Welcome, everybody. Sorry if I held you up. I'm sure there were a couple people waiting for me to come in before they went to bed. It has been really nice to end my days with these conversations because usually what I do after my live is I shut things down and it gives me a feeling of a completion, completion for sure, but I think it's the accomplishment. Sometimes I feel like I don't do enough. And it was really nice today. I bumped into my nephew at the grocery store, and we walked home together, and he popped in for a visit, and we were having a conversation. Again, I've been enjoying these conversations. Like I said, I don't get to have these conversations with people in real life. And that's not the way it's always going to be, but because I'm in the lessons, right? Um this is where I spend my time, is at the absorption of the lessons. That's where the energy was going. We're talking a little bit about that energy, because learning takes a lot of energy, right? But I have ways of, I adapt, I conquer, I know the job that I've got to get done. But I said, even this conversation that me and you are having right now, this is energy, but this is a different kind of energy for me because it's in the realm of what I love. And when I'm in there, it's like about a 5-year-old. I get super excited and the energy is built. And I feel bad sometimes because it's a trait. I know I have it. I know I've always had it. It comes from needing to be seen or needing to be heard, and I will overtalk people quite often. I listen. I'm a good listener, but because I feel out things so quickly that I'm like a horse at a racetrack behind the gates, right? I'm just ready to jump out there and to make revelations and put my 2 cents worth into it. And my nephew is really, really sweet because, I do that a lot to him, but that's because of that overexcitement that I have, because these are conversations that I don't always get. And because I get insights and little personal tidbits that I don't know. Like today, what was that I got? Oh, the Archbishop. He's super smart, and he's gone back into our family lineage. And I've mentioned it before. There are bishops and archbishops and tons of nuns going back in my family on my mom's side. And my nephew actually introduced me to one of them, and so I was doing a little bit of Googling on this gentleman, Archbishop. He was the Archbishop of Ireland, believe it or not. And he was very influential in the time of Queen Elizabeth I, during those that Catholic Protestant issues going on. And he was actually a patronage his entire life of Queen Elizabeth. Queen Elizabeth took care of him financially his entire life, like castles and everything, right? He even had children who married, well, he had 20 kids, right? And 12 of them survived out of the 20 kids, but one of the daughters married the Duke of Wellington, so they were able to get into those circles. Even though it was an archbishop, he supposedly he liked the money. He liked, I don't know, it was difficult to make money at that time, or if he was an entrepreneur and just liked to drum up lots of money. But I'm assuming if he had a castle, he wasn't quite in need in need of it. unless it was one of those ruined ones. Yeah, so that was really, really neat, because I went in, did a little bit of Googling. He seems to be a character that is pretty well known. And, you know, my mother's family tree would have covered this entire wall behind me. It was really neat. It was really old paper. And when it was folded, it was about this big and about this thick. And when my mother passed away, my youngest sister, cleaning out the trunk, thought it was garbage and she threw it away. And it went all the way back to the 1400s. I wasn't woke at the time, I wish that I had those documents now that was just plain because it was an actual family tree, like a really old, like the paper was falling apart and everything. But I remember looking at it a few times as a kid and a teenager because that's our ancestry, but it wasn't a big thing for me. It wasn't an interest for me. Now, in my more impounded love for history, and especially my own history, especially now having so many answers start coming at me a little bit, that I'm getting a little bit of a better understanding. It's not that I'm searching out those lessons, because that's not important to me. Because what's important to me is in the creation of the best human being I possibly can. And in that, it has to be that voice for I was going to say the person that I was, but I'm going to say the child that I was, right? That maybe somewheres down the road, that maybe I could take care of those kids that could have been the future, that would have been the future. Like, right? What could I have come to the table with the proper mentorship, with the understandings? Maybe these conversations were given to me, but because I wasn't woke, it just kind of went in one ear and out the other. But there was that connection, and there was something understood even when I didn't understand. I just didn't understand what I was understanding, if that makes any sense. So, yeah, so I missed the opportunity in my life to be able to actually really go back. I don't know about divvying out my DNA to have it tested and stuff, even though I would love to know how much Neanderthal I have in me, right? How much Denisovan I have in me. They were saying that there's up to 8% Denisovan in the Homo sapiens, right? That's a totally different human being, kind of human being. And then we have between 1 and 3% on average, right? Of Neanderthal in us. That would maybe be a total of 9 or 10% of something other than modern human, additionally added in. Now, moving forward in our evolution, I would assume as we call it breed, as we breed, that we will lessen those numbers, because right, we are becoming more diverse. And that's what happened. Maybe at one time we were 50% Neanderthal. Maybe Homo sapiens come from the Neanderthal, and at one time Neanderthal was the 95% and the humans were the 5%, right? It is hard to say, but that doesn't mean that it's never going to be known, because man, are they making some serious movement when it comes to archaeology. There's going to be some big news in the near future. Oh, talk about the near future. I don't know. I was just popped into a site where it was a geologist, and he just loves learning about the plates, right? And he's made uh, a prediction that there's going to be a major earthquake right away. That the graphs are all reading the same as the Turkey earthquakes, those big ones, right? And it's the same kind of earthquake where things kind of shift like this, and these are the dangerous ones because the buildings, start swaying and moving back and forth too. And that's where most of the devastation is, not in the earthquake itself, but the aftermath and the consequence of it, right? But he was saying that, but everybody, he says, his friends and stuff, that they're talking about it, right? Because they were reading it in the graphs. He seems to think that it might hit Japan, which I thought it was kind of funny because the the Japan came across my path a couple of times today, because I was going in. I'm thinking of listing my anime. I got a lot of stuff that I don't need when I'm right. I said I was going to collect anime, but I'm not working in that thrift store, that job that put the roof over my head anymore. And the how often will I find this anime just on the fly like this? So I thought maybe I would pull it out and give it to my sister so she can make a package or something and move it along. And then there were a couple other incidences today where the where Japan surfaced in my I don't know, I was a conversation possibly with my nephew, and then maybe something that I watched today, but it was just like right away, it just like, oh my goodness, like, right. And it's not like, Japan doesn't ever come across my path, they do. But when I heard he was thinking about that it might be in the area of Japan, I was thinking to myself, right? Oh, and you kind of backtrack and the pieces kind of fit in that, right? So I'm thinking, well, if there is a major earthquake, and let's hope there's no major earthquake, I would suspect probably he is right in that. Maybe that was the confirmation where those little hints, and that we all get the opportunity to read these things, but we read them differently, right? That's all I got was the idea of Japan. Nothing about earthquakes or just the name coming in like a breath a few times during the course of the day. So we'll see what's going on. I ended the video because I looked at the clock and I saw, oh my goodness, it's time to go to bed. Time to do your live show, Cindy. So I've still got it here. And they're calling it a red alert. So they're he's pretty certain, right? Everybody is cautious. They don't want to stick their foot in the mouth, especially when you are credited and people look up to you for your opinions. But he's pretty certain. He was so certain that he felt the need to come online tonight and to express it. So we'll see, you guys. We'll see. Things come across my path for a reason. I wasn't searching out that kind of content, and I'm not idly moving through the content today. It was pretty specific in the lessons, a little bit of history. I'm right in the Neolithic, and it's a place I've been almost all year. And there's some, like I said, some great discoveries when it comes to history. But it looks like there's some great discoveries going on when it comes to geology too, because oh my goodness, all the different technology and innovation every, what do you call that, industry, every yeah, I don't know what you call it, but it's just kind of touching everything, right? It touches everybody's life in some way. It's going to be an adjustment. It's going to get deeper and deeper and deeper. And yeah, I hope that we don't become robotic in that way, or have to stifle our emotions, or right, because uh that's the excitement, that's the agitation, that's the gumption, the resilience, that's where the movement is, that's where the fun is, that is the something to do while you're bored, or something to do because you don't have anything else to do, right? So that's a human trait. That's not a machine. That's not machine age traits, right? Because they're machines, and they're just truly analytical, and we can see that humans are becoming more analytical too. Even in myself, I see myself becoming more analytical. Analytical meaning in that patterning, and that in that coding that we just kind of naturally work out for ourselves. See, my nephew today just again paying me compliments, right? I know my stuff. I just have to, well, he wants me to package it. I don't want to package it. Mean, tidy it up, trim the edges, make it look pretty, right? For me, it's the message. For me, it is the conversation and feeling comfortable, right? Not just feeling comfortable for myself, because I'm right. I couldn't get any more comfortable than I am right now in my own home. And let me just turn this around. You don't need to see the content. Oh, I just got on the main screen anyway, right? You know, I do this also. Well, maybe a conversation for another time, because that is a topic that I really could go deep into it, right? So I have to say, you guys, I put myself to work this morning. I got up. The first thing I did was, what is the most important thing for me to accomplish today? And right, it was finishing my cards, you guys. And I put a little bit of work in them, and I thought maybe it might be okay, because I've changed. I've learned a lot. I've absorbed a lot. And I was willing to have my perspective course corrected in some cases, right? And sometimes it's just in the clarity of things, and that tidying up and making it look pretty. And I was really proud of myself. Today I just sat down. Not only did I do the span that I wanted to do in getting the most important task done, uh, in the middle of that task, right, there was the opportunity to go off and get some sun and get some chores done and have a nice day for myself. So I said, you get this done, Cindy, right? Then you can go off and have a nice day. This is your reward, right? And I got it done, you guys. So what we're going to do tonight is, we're just Friday night. It's the last day that I'll be here for what's my good cheer anyway. But if you want to pop in on Sunday night for Chatters Live, I have an amazing crew. We are always looking forward to people that may have never popped into our little, it is kind of like a little family now. I don't know what I did to deserve such an amazing crew that come in every single week, week after week, and truly year after year. Grateful. There we go. A little bonus grateful for today. It's important to throw those gratefulnesses out there, especially sometimes when we feel that everything is so heavy and pounding us down and tripping us up, that we tend to think of everything that's going wrong, but never think of what's going right. And it is so important. It is so discouraging for somebody not to see their work matter or not to see their work appreciated. Um, it is really, really discouraging. I know what that feels, in lots of my jobs to have that credit taken by somebody else. Um, yeah, and it happens and it will happen again for sure, 100%. Sometimes it's in that permission we give to others, right? Like here, if I give a little tidbit and you found it to be helpful and you told your friend, I love that. That's amazing. Or maybe you're on these platforms too, and because I don't have that following, but maybe you have that following, right? And you just had that connection to an insight that maybe I dished out. Like, take it, run with it, please, 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 right? Because it is the message that matters. And if I'm not getting it right, if I can't make that connection to have that voice for the whole, right? Right? It's wonderful. Like I said, I have the most amazing crew. They've been with me for years, but it is a small crew still, right? And as much as I love the way that they love on me and share me with others, it's right sometimes not enough, right, for the big. My hand, I just look purple there. For the big insight, but it's enough. It's more than enough for me. And because this is for me, first and foremost, right? And then it's for my brand. Well, no, it's not for my brand because it's for those who join me in my brand. Second, and then my brand. My brand is third, right? Okay, you guys. End of the night. Let's just grab a card. They're all done. I wrote them all in, made a few course corrections. I didn't want to because, they were all channeled in the moment, and I didn't want to change an insight that I really felt a connection to and that I felt the flow in when I was writing them out. But a couple of them I really didn't get in going over them and went, I don't get this. And then I tried to say to myself, oh, but it doesn't matter if I don't get it. Maybe it's something for the future. Maybe it's for 1,000 years from now or something. And then it'll be, oh, that's what that means, right? And then I went in and I says, yeah, but what if I pull that card tomorrow? It doesn't serve me. So let's just go in and fix it as if we're in that moment. So I spent some good time on it today. I only had to fix 3 or 4 cards. Some of them it was just a word or two in the wording. The other, there were a couple of them that I changed completely, right? One of them, I didn't use other people's quotes or other people's insights. They were mine. Sometimes, I would Google the word and see what Google would say about the word. And then I would be inspired and or I would know in priority what was the most important aspect of that word. And I was able to come up with an insight that I would write on the card. But today I didn't copy, but I was so inspired by a quote by, well, I came across it online. It was by Martin Luther King, and I can't remember it in the moment, but if we pull that card, I'll be instantly jogged in the recognition and I'll remember the quote. and it inspired me so much. It was different the way I put it. I think it was more inclusive. But, you know, Martin Luther King was very inclusive, right? He was talking to everybody because what he wanted to accomplish took everybody, right? Working on it to make it work. Kind of like what I'm doing, right? I'm a community project. What I'm doing is a community project, right? And yeah, we could all just benefit from a contribution, even if it's just a quote. It inspired me, and I felt it like I felt it like it was my very own. And if it was going to be my very own, it had to be my very own because everything else in the deck was my very own. But I was inspired by Martin Luther King. I can't remember what the quote was. Darn, I wish I could remember. I don't know why I told the story if I couldn't even remember the quote. I didn't write it down today, did I? I don't think I wrote it down. Maybe it seems like something I would do is write it down for sure. Uh yeah, don't want to be looking at it. My desk is all tidy for a change. And it was just a matter of, I had a couple of books there that were kind of getting in the way because I was left them there to be the reminder, get some reading in. And then I'm just doing everything but, and it's taking up space on there. And I just put them away. Well, I didn't put them away. They're right here still, so I can pull them out. But it just cleared my desk right up, and I feel 100 times better for it. We had the most beautiful day today, you guys. It went up to 22 Celsius, so it was absolutely gorgeous. I got outside for a little bit today. It was amazing. Tomorrow I'll get out again. Um, but tomorrow will be house project day for sure. I haven't been doing too much in the past week because, the first few weeks after leaving my job, I went kind of nuts, so trying to organize. And now that I've caught up a little bit and slowing down on that, I kind of forgot my regular routine in when my chores were, right? Because my days off, I always sorted them towards my days off, but every day is kind of like a day off right now. So I've just kind of been forgetting about the projects and things are falling behind a little bit. Not much. Right? There are priorities. My energy goes to my priorities, right? But things still have to get done, don't they? Mm, make a good cup of coffee. Oh my goodness. Okay, you guys. 2 minutes, couple minutes, and we're just going to grab a word here. If you've never hung out with us, I made my own deck here. It is 54 powerful words. Most of them are action words, but they are important words in respect to our lives and some of the hiccups that we have, some of the dreams and aspirations that we have, and we have those little tendencies sometimes to be our own instigators in those hiccups and failures and stuff, and they're just little tips and things that I picked up along the way. A lot of it too is in my own experience, and I think that is the best way that we can teach, because our feelings are wrapped up in those emotions that we have so strongly, especially in those experiences that we have. And so when we speak with them, we can't help but, when we're telling those stories, to bring them up, and we feel it. It's like we're there again, and those emotions are attached to them, right? Okay, so let me just grab a card. You guys. Here it is. Oh my goodness. This is one of my favorite cards in the whole deck. You know, it's something that I grew up on. And it's not something, sorry, I don't like to drop my cards on the floor under the sun. This is not just something I grew up in, and it isn't just something I learned. And I didn't know it was I was learning at the time. It was just the matter of being in the experience and in that adapt and conquer, and the experiences offer up the lessons, right? Things imprint on us. And it wasn't just me in that resilience. It was the entire family. We were a Tuffy family. Looking back on that, there was a lot in that struggle. And I'm grateful for my dad. He struggled in making sure that there was a roof over our heads, but there was always a roof over our heads. I do not ever remember him not having a roof over our heads. And, there were struggles. There were lots of times when he had to ask for assistance or we did without, but we always had those basic needs. And sometimes it's in that resilience. You know what I mean? It's in that troubles and those struggles and that pushback on us. We got the word resilience, you guys. Right? That we learn to build resilience. Those struggles, those goals, those dreams, those things that we want. It's the right. And this is something pretty new to me because for most of my life I have been avoiding, right, the responsibility of doing better by myself. I was perfectly comfy where I was. I was having fun. I was being roofed. I was getting fed, right? I had friends. I had a life that I had put together, but I didn't recognize in any way that there were possibilities for something more, that I could dream, that I could move towards the things that I wanted and it would be okay. I had no idea. It was just Cindy bumbling along, and that's what I was doing, bumping into things, right? Having a good time, but not always the best of influences. But, grateful for a lot of those lessons that I got, right? A lot of tough lessons. That's not where the trauma lies. Right? There's a difference between lessons and abuse. I have to say abuse. Like it's truly what it was, right? In the 70s, it was kind of the norm, right? Yeah, yelling at your kids and smacking your kids around a little while. The kid throws a fit, throws a fit in Safeway. You would just grab them by the scruff of the neck, or you would twist their ear and you would drag them out of the grocery store so fast. You can't do those kind of things this day and age. That's considered abuse. I didn't consider that abuse. I considered that tough love. I considered that discipline, right? I considered that the lessons. The abuse was in the intent, right? The abuse was in the coerciveness and in the manipulation and in the projection of what somebody else expected or wanted or thought that I was, right? And then me, right, struggling up against that. And lots of times I didn't have a say in that because if I said anything, all hell would break loose. So a lot of it I choked down, right? I wasn't angry, but I was hurt in that because I didn't understand. Understand a little bit better right now. That sandpaper. That sometimes we don't rub each other well, even within our own families. I'm sure everybody's got at least one sibling, right? That just irks you every time, that every time you're in the present, you guys end up scrapping, right? Sometimes you go for long distances without talking, or you don't even want to see each other because the agitation is already built up. Oh, what's going to happen? Oh, you know what happened last Christmas is going to happen again. And what you think about is realized. Okay, pull it back. So let's read what I wrote here for resilience. Resilience is knowing a win will only come through the resistance of failures. Exactly what I was talking about there is knowing a win will only come through the resistance of failures, right? When that push is coming at you all the time. I said I wasn't always that person. I was happy just to be all comfy and hanging out with my friends and partying and dancing and clubbing and having a good time. But that resilience came, when things got tough and I pushed up against it. You know what I mean? Like, oh my goodness, really? This is going to fail if I don't hold it up, or oh my goodness, it looks like I'm going to lose everything, and if I do, oh my goodness, and then you double paddle and you do everything you can to make sure that one thing does not fail. Sometimes in that resistance to fails, in that appreciation that somebody's making you feel bad, right? And for yourself, your understanding is a truth, right? Maybe not a truth for others, but it's definitely a truth for you. But in that projection, somebody's making you trying to make you believe something else, and you're choking on that. And you're choking on that because it's the evidence that you can't trust others, right? In that guidance and in those conversations that rub up against us, that we absorb. And I certainly don't want to absorb an untruth, right? And we all do, all the time. We all do all the time. That's why we have to be willing to be course corrected, or be willing to look for a second opinion, even a third opinion, right? But in the end, it's your opinion and your experience, and it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks, right? It's only an opinion. It's only confidence, like somebody giving you an example or telling you a story of somebody else's experience or their experience to give you maybe an appetizer platter of possibilities for solutions, right? Resilience is knowing a win will only come through the resistance of failures. It happens to me all the time. If I can push back, right? When I think I can't take any more, I take a little bit more. It's never, ever lots more. It never has been that way. When I crack, when I break, when I'm ready to give up, that's after that resistance. That's after Cindy's been pushing up against what's pushing me. But when I'm ready to give up, you're guaranteed every last bit of energy I have is going to go for one more big push. And it's usually that push that will offer up something, some kind of breakthrough, some kind of miracle, some beautiful landscape, somebody to stop when the hood of your car is wide open if you've got a flat tire and have no way to change it, right? And that is the truth, right? And I've known it from my own the evidence of my own life. Especially I use it lots when I go on my trips in September because I'm off by myself for 2 weeks. Lots of stuff happens, lots of mishaps. That's the fun of it, but they're mishaps for myself and they're part of my adventure. But I know in those mishaps, right? Like losing my wallet and just wanting to give up and accept that it's gone. No, you don't stop. You just keep crack, and then it's just there, right? It just reappears. You might even check that same spot 100 times, and there it is, right? But those are the challenges, and those are little challenges, you guys. So we're just game. We should throw out those gratefulnesses that sometimes those resiliences that we learn when we learn to be resilient comes in an easy way. Prime example, the resilience of people who are in the midst of war and turmoil. That's a different kind of resilience. But your own very life survival depends on you being resilient and adapting and conquering and taking that beating and not, right? Not opening up your mouth and, right, making the situation worse, like forward thinking a little bit. But also at the same time, not just fully giving in and accepting, right? Just accepting your fate. It's in that pushback, right? It's knowing a win will only come through the resistance of our failures. And then also in that comparison, there are lots of people who live in a world, and I'm not saying this world, I'm not saying this country or city or village, but our own solitude in our own minds in our own home on our couch with the controllers or right, I don't know how kids play the video games, but these games are very, 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 very graphic, very graphic. But I would assume that there would be a sense of building resilience in playing those games because we get very involved. Well, I don't play video games, but kids get very involved in these video games, right? And it becomes a part of you. And I would assume that, if you're in that, you're experiencing that. And if the need be, right, maybe you could make use out of that. I don't know, right? I don't know. But I would assume that is some form of resilience being learnt in that. But it's not the same because it doesn't promote the trauma. It doesn't trigger the memory, and it doesn't trigger the hopelessness that something in reality happens, right? In the end, you still know that that's just a video game. You're just going to be ticked when they blow your head into little smithereen tidbits splattered up against the wall in a video game, right? But I would assume there was some sense of learning in that. There has to be because that's what I'm optimistic that it would be, because if that's not the case, oh my goodness, these kids are wasting a lot, a lot of time, a lot of potential, right? Okay, you guys, that's the end of my live show. That's my good cheer. That's the end of my night. You guys, I'll be back on Monday. Like I said, you're more than welcome to pop in on Sunday night. I'm in there around 7:30 Central. It's a good time. I encourage you guys, come and hang out with us if you want to. Okay, you guys. Let me just turn this notification down, and everybody have a great night.